Look around today and you'll see a world fracturing. People are increasingly polarized, locked in bitter conflicts, and reacting from deep, unhealed trauma, casting stark shadows that dictate our every move. We usually blame politics or economics for this chaos, but there is a compelling argument that the root cause is actually an invisible psychological pathogen. Indigenous traditions call it Wetiko, a contagious virus of the mind, sometimes known as malignant lignothrignathry. This mind virus survives by exploiting a core flaw in how we perceive reality. It feeds on the belief that we live in an independently existing objective universe, a world entirely separate from us, and that we are isolated, independent subjects completely disconnected from it. Because we are convinced these global crises are purely external, physical problems, we try to solve them with external tools. And as long as we do that, the psychological infection actually pulling the strings remains completely hidden. In mythology, finding the true name of a demon takes away its power. This folklore points to a practical necessity. We cannot skillfully navigate a psychological process that remains outside the reach of our language. Naming a hidden dynamic brings it into the light of conscious awareness. Wetiko relies heavily on what we can call not-see disease, or NSD. This is a collective blindness where we actively deny the presence of darkness or evil, both out in the world and deep within ourselves. To strip this virus of its power, we have to invent a dynamic, specialized vocabulary. We need a diagnostic manual of acronyms and terms to categorize the specific, deceptive tactics Wetiko uses to hide in plain sight. Language is simply our sharpest tool here. By naming these psychological syndromes clearly and accurately, we drag this invisible infection out of the shadows and force it into our conscious awareness. Let's look at how this plays out in the individual psyche. It starts with doso, the dread of seeing ourselves. This is the human mind's built-in tendency to avoid looking at its own shadow-infused, painful parts. This avoidance triggers a secondary condition called KJR, or knee-jerk reflectophobia. When we are confronted with our own unhealed trauma, we experience an instinctual, conditioned recoil. We immediately look away. Because we refuse to process our own internal darkness, Wetiko hijacks our perception. It forces us to take all that unexamined pain and project it outward onto the external world and other people. Personal denial acts as the perfect incubator. It allows private trauma to secretly mutate, turning our unhealed wounds into a weaponized reality that we inflict on everyone around us. Once it takes hold in the individual, the virus spreads through our interactions. Think about DCDS, dismissing content due to source. This is when we refuse to engage with any information from the other side, locking ourselves comfortably inside our chosen echo chambers. This isolation breeds MUSCS, massively uninformed smug certainty syndrome. We outsource our critical thinking to media propaganda, do zero independent research, and then develop an absolute, unshakable conviction that we hold the singular truth. These behaviors are governed by the underlying structural grammar of the virus itself, known as 2v2, or the two-valued virus. It forces our minds into a rigid, binary, true or false logic that destroys nuance and guarantees a hostile us versus them worldview. You can see the ultimate irony of this in FAAWADs, the false appearance of agreement while actually disagreeing syndrome. Polarized factions will completely agree that terrible evil is destroying their country, but they exclusively project that evil onto the opposing group. Wetiko thrives by weaponizing that exact feeling of self-righteous certainty. It tricks us into adopting the vicious tactics of our enemies, ensuring we become the exact monsters we believe we are fighting. The true engine driving all of this is ADS, a participatory delusional syndrome. ADS is the intense delusion that you are a completely passive victim. It tells you that you are merely reacting to an independent, objective world that is happening to you, rather than something you are involved in. By convincing you that you have no agency, this syndrome deliberately obscures your own active role. It blinds you to how you are co-creating the exact negative experiences and conflicts you constantly complain about. Believing we are helpless victims acts as the final lock on our own prison door. This kind of total passive surrender is the exact psychological state Wetiko requires to maintain absolute control over our minds. To break this spell, we have to challenge the binary illusion of inside versus outside. Topological geometry provides a model to visualize how that separation is conceptually flawed. This shape is a torus. It provides a geometric image of how our inner and outer experiences only appear to be separate, but are, in fact, continuous. A Klein bottle takes this further as a three-dimensional model of the human psyche. What initially appears to have a distinct inside and outside is actually a single, one-sided surface. It suggests the psyche and the world are two aspects of a unified process. We can apply this logic to time. We usually experience time as a horizontal line, a linear sequence of cause and effect, but at every single moment, a vertical axis of simulcausality intersects it, representing higher, nonlinear dimensions influencing our standard sequence of events. These intersections indicate our internal state continuously influences and expresses itself through our external reality. This simulcausal connection challenges Wetiko's core trick, the illusion that our inner lives have no effect on the outer world. By mapping the mind's topology and identifying Wetiko's specific syndromes, we finally see the virus as an illusion of our own perspective. But we have to be careful of do so, being duped into unwittingly supporting the opposite. If we attack this mind virus as an external enemy to be destroyed, we feed it the exact binary conflict it needs to grow stronger. The true cure requires us to integrate our own shadow. We have to move past binary thinking and reclaim the four-valued logic of quantum interconnectedness, where the observer and the observed are one. Overcoming Wetiko is a creative act. We must consciously undream the nightmare together.